Thank you.
The question, Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make a short contribution on this subordinate legislation, confirmation and validation bill number 2. As I'm sure earlier speakers will have said, that the purpose of this bill is to confirm and in some cases validate subordinate legislation made under various acts. And passing this bill, the House is effectively approving the subordinate legislation specified in this bill and allowing it to continue in force. And essentially this lays around a series of levies and other matters that, as Mike Sabin said, in the absence of this legislation would not be able to carry on. Just some interesting points, sir. The orders under the Land Transport Act refer to motor vehicle registration, and I note that the bulk of motor vehicle registration is actually the accident compensation levy that motor vehicle owners pay into ACC. The ACC recommended to the government that it reduce the motor vehicle levy, as it made recommendations that the government could reduce a range of ACC levies. In fact, it was Nick Smith who put the ACC levies up when he created a phony crisis in the Accident Compensation Corporation. He overcharged New Zealanders. He caused New Zealand taxpayers to pay far more in their ACC levies than what was necessary, and the result was this year that the ACC made a nearly $5 billion surplus. And of course the reason why the government refused to reduce the levies that Nick Smith, who interjected on me, raised when he was Minister, the reason why the government refused to reduce those levies before now was, of course, because that ACC surplus contributes to the government's surplus. And the government set itself a target of getting the books back into surplus by the 2014-15 financial year, sir, and it has failed to do that through economic growth. When New Zealanders saw that target, they assumed that what this government was planning to do was to grow the New Zealand economy, grow the number of jobs, get more people back into work so that they were paying tax, and that would be the way the government would reverse the phenomenal amount of borrowing that has occurred since it took office. But it has failed to do that, and so it's found all sorts of other mechanisms by which to artificially inflate the government's books and make it appear that the government has reached surplus by 2014-15, and one of those is, of course, the ACC levies that Nick Smith put up. And of course, why I reference this in this legislation, sir, is that we're talking about the motor vehicle account. That was actually one that the government decided they wouldn't reduce. So whilst there will be some election bribes next year for the work account and the earners account, could have happened last year, but they've been put off to next year because that's election year. Unfortunately, the poor old motor vehicle owner will not get any relief there. And this is an issue which I know it does concern a lot of people because, for instance, if you own a motorcycle, I know the Honourable Phil Goff's very interested in this issue. If you own a motorcycle, or if you own more than one motorcycle, then you're paying quite a lot in your ACC levies. And many motorbike riders quite rightly point out that you can't actually ride more than one bike at a time. And therefore it might be inequitable for them to have to pay those extremely high levies, and certainly there was never any suggestion that motorbike owners would have their motor vehicle registration levy reduced, even though some other folks would. One other really interesting idea that the government is trying to push through, although it seems that they're now having to do a little bit more work to justify it, and that is this idea that if you're rich and you own a new car, then you can pay less on your motor vehicle registration than someone who's on a middle income or a lower income and can only afford an older car, as if that was going to incentivise people to buy newer, safer cars. I mean, it's just ridiculous, sir. The fact of the matter is that with the income gap widening under this government, with more and more people finding it harder and harder to make ends meet, there's no way on earth they're going to go and buy the latest model Mercedes so that they can get a reduction on their ACC level. I mean, it just shows you, sir, how completely out of touch this government actually is with reality, that somehow having a lower ACC levy would incentivise people to head down to their nearest BMW dealer and buy the latest model car, sir. So, sir, this I know is simply subordinate legislation that allows certain things to carry on, but sir, it is important that we legislators, although we pass this legislation, we understand the implications and we understand the variety of options that were in front of the government when they considered this legislation. And sir, on a number of those options, frankly, the government does get it wrong, because they always put their mates ahead of the interests of all regular, ordinary New Zealanders.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Subordinate legislation, confirmation and validation, Bill number 2, second reading.
This bill is set down for third reading forthwith. Honourable Chris Tremain.
I move that the subordinate legislation, confirmation and